Geek Tank Radio. News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
Welcome, everyone. We are the Geek Patrol, and our microphones don't have a stun setting. Today's episode of Geek Tank Radio is brought to you by Multiverse anti-vomiting tablets. And just in time for lunch, Brandon.
That is the best.
And you thought Dramamine could do a job. Where do you try this stuff?
Boy, you thought traveling, in an airplane was rough. Yeah. It's like, you tried jumping from multiverse to multiverse.
I'm just remembering a Yondu person going, "We're making 700 jumps, you rat."
Yeah.
So yeah.
Anyway, welcome to Geek Tank Radio. I'm Joe Thorderson here with my friends Brandon Olmstead and Allan Gilbreth and our buddy Max behind the glass. And gee, I wonder what we should talk about today.
I don't
let's
know.
see.
Has anything important happened in geekdom in the past, 48 hours?
Well, the pendulum has swung. We go from talking about DC or Batman or things, but now it's all Marvel. This week, Moon Knight wrapped up its first season. We don't know if there'll be a second season. Maybe there will. Maybe there won't. And then, of course, Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness came out. And that's pretty much, I think, going to be the target discussion. In our bonus digital content, we'll get to some other stuff that I'm not even going to tease because who cares? If you want to listen.
We like to surprise you guys.
Just check it out. But I guess we should start, you guys, with Moon Knight, and we're dealing in spoilers, folks. I hate to say it. If you can't handle spoilers, you may want to tune in after you've seen
I
what
want to
we're
go
going to
ahead
discuss.
Say, you mentioned the idea of a second season, and they spoke with the showrunners, and they're like, we don't know. And I honestly don't think that they should. I think this is a nice.
Go either way.
I think this is a nice little introduction to what exactly Moon Knight is and what he's about. And now they should wait and have him show up in whatever pseudo dark Avengers thing that Blade and the Black Knight are going to.
Well, I'm going to throw in, not only do they show what Moon Knight is, they also got a pretty good basis for what he's not.
That's true.
Meaning what?
Stable?
Well, he's not a stable character. He's not a Thor character. He's not a Guardians of the Galaxy character. He is really a loose cannon capable of any number of twists and turns. He's sponsored by a god that
really doesn't care that much for humanity himself.
Let's just face it, was just out to win.
Yeah, that's what I don't get.
It was not a good guy's show. There was not a good guy in this show.
That's not true.
Taweret
and the Scarlet Scarab are technically heroes. She's a protector.
Technically. But as a lady, they're still hanging out with...
Well...
Dude,
I hang out with you. That does not make me any less altruistic.
That's true.
Yeah. I don't know. I've not yet seen him protecting the innocent too much other than a couple of fight scenes in the street where.
We're not talking about Moon Knight being the protector. We're talking about Layla.
No, I know, but when you're talking about the god Khonshu,
no, he ain't there to protect nothing.
He's like, will you? He makes him take a vow. Will you protect the travelers?
Of the night, and you have not found.
I've yet to seen.
You haven't seen the travelers of the night yet. They're not.
And you don't know what they are.
They're not. They're not exactly the people. He basically says you're going to operate by moonlight.
Yeah.
You will take to the skies at night. You are the terror that flaps in the night.
Yes.
But
he's Darkwing Duck.
To me, that's like almost the least interesting part of the whole character. The interesting part is that the guy's just constantly switching from personality to personality. Right. He doesn't know what reality is, and we don't know what reality is.
That was kind of an important part of the whole character was that he ain't wound too tight.
No.
There's some issues, or he's wound a little too tight. Moon Knight is just one of these bizarre characters that came out of a certain time period in comic books where they were exploring different archetypes, and somebody went, oh yeah, y'all try to figure this one out. There you go, boom. And now he's part of the MCU. So now I guess we've got a pretty decent introduction to a pivotal yet probably fringe character.
I don't want him teaming up with anybody. I don't even know how you put him next to anybody, because to me, then that reveals too much truth. I
think
about
he's
him.
a good foil for Blade and a few other folks.
Yeah, I mean, he could hang with the Midnight Suns. That's easy. Hang with the Midnight Suns. That's easy. We know that he has worked with Daredevil and Spider-Man, and there have been times, because if the Stephen Grant persona is out there, he works alongside him like a real hero.
Yes.
When Mark is there, he's the guy who kind of comes across as more Punisher-like.
Yeah.
And when Jake's there, Jake's just going to beat the unholy bejesus out of whatever's coming his way.
Okay, question. That was another question I had, Brandon, because when we see him, when Mark Spector is in the Moon Knight persona, in my opinion, he has the coolest costume. He's got the cape. He's got the whole thing. And then when Steven has it, he's got that weird just white suit and the
Mr. Knight costume.
Mask. Yeah. Well, what does Jake wear?
Well, back in the day when Jake was a major prominent role in the comics, Moon Knight had the same costume no matter who was in charge.
Right.
Okay.
Jake's costume, though, has more dark elements to it and looks more like a Batman costume with a big moon on the chest.
I'm surprised we haven't seen it. Or
You didn't see it in this because they wanted to keep Jake as a he was
the prize at the end.
Because right now, Mark and Steven think that they're free of Khonshu.
So they don't even know Jake
They don't even know that Jake is more Khonshu's boy than they ever were.
Yeah.
Huh.
Here's the
he's the Wetworks guy.
Yeah.
Well, here's the sliminess of the sponsor god. You have individual archetype personalities. Each one, and two of them have now met.
Yeah.
So they understand that neither one of them is actually real. They're just personalities of a certain body. And they don't know that there are other personalities. And that Khonshu can keep forcing other personalities to the surface and thus keep the body under contract ad infinitum.
Yeah. If you notice, there's a lot, we talk about visualizations at the end of these episodes when the, stylized credits are rolling.
Right.
And we always said, keep an eye on things. Mm-hmm. And if you watch, most of the times when they're showing Mark split, you see him in threes. But there's one specifically where you see him in 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the fourth one is the human personification of Khonshu.
Man,
we don't know nothing about him.
But see, here's the whole point, Joe. Your head is spinning a little bit,
and it's supposed
that is
to be.
exactly where they want you to be with this
put it this
character.
way, because I pay close attention in movies, and a minute a movie gets formulaic, or a TV show or whatever, I get bored. I mean, hey,
you didn't get bored on this one.
Loki was a perfect example. I was all 100% on board, and by the last episode, I sort of didn't even care anymore I have pretty high standards.
Well, I'm gonna agree with you on that one right there too.
This show wrote me in, and it's got me pondering things. Like, for example, my initial thought was, okay, we just automatically assume that that Mark Spector is the dominant.
Nope.
My mind is like, who's to say Steven isn't the original whatever, and Mark became his coping mechanism, and Jake is just sort of his rage or something. I don't know.
It's very much the closest thing we've seen so far in the MCU that touches on that is the persona between Hulk and Banner, which if you read some of those comics, even as recent as a decade ago, there's way more personalities inside Bruce than that. There's a ton of personalities that kind of run wild within him. These are just you see various personifications of his childhood, which was the Hulk, abusive. He beat the crap out of him and his mom.
Yeah.
Joe Fixit, who is basically his teenager. And then the Professor Hulk, who is, his adult persona. But then we've seen the Maestro, which is kind of the grumpy old man who just, he's Clint Eastwood with a shotgun and a chair. But Moon Knight, though, actually kind of delves into the dissociative identity disorder, and it can come across very offensive in some cases in the comics. And it's written from a point of view where you see Steven, you see as a sympathetic character. You see Mark as the more solid character. And then, like I've said it before, Jake's kind of a thug.
Yeah.
I just kind of wanted to pose a random question because
Okay.
I was kind of curious about this. Brandon, do you know question? Because
Okay.
I was kind of curious about this. Brandon, do you know why Jake only speaks in Spanish?
That's just that's part of the persona there. It's not a thing in the comics, but he's kind of a world traveler. He's also a taxi driver.
Yeah.
But when he comes across, I mean, he wears the big traditional stereotypical Hispanic mustache that you see in old movies. In the comics, he wears that, and it's fake.
Yeah, it's a
but
disguise,
it's
right?
part
Yeah.
of the disguise. But yeah, it's their way of personifying that Mark is fractured more than we expect.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing to throw in is at no point in time, while this may be a sympathetic character, however you want to look at
Right.
the totality of Moon Knight, there is a sympathetic nature to it, but there's not a good nature to this.
No.
We're dealing with gods and their
Yeah.
egos and their avatars, because
Steve,
now
yeah.
he's going to be counterpointed by everybody's favorite hippo.
Yeah, Towerette and her avatar, the Scarlet Scarab, which, again, seeing Layla take on the Scarlet Scarab at the end, I cheered, which
Right.
is really bad at 3 o'clock in the morning because you wake people up.
Yeah.
But I've said off air a couple of times, I would like to have seen more Scarlet in her costume, a little more red.
Right.
But that's,
It was pretty cool the way she used her wings and everything.
yeah.
But, Layla,
But-
yeah. Is she, because we saw her in the insane asylum too, is that just a projection of,
no, that's
was she a real patient and I don't know.
that is basically basically Mark and Steven being awake when Jake has control of the body.
Okay.
That's they basically, their consciousness used to be buried,
Yeah.
but they're starting as they're all kind of getting screwed up by Khonshu, really. They're becoming more aware of what's going on when they aren't in control.
You know what I'm observing
Which you
here?
also saw more conversation back and forth between Steven and Mark, especially in that moment when they tell mental institute Harrow that they know that the mental institute is the fake part.
Yeah.
The asylum is the fake.
Yeah. Well, what's cool about Moon Knight and why, and because I'm noticing WandaVision is still my favorite, but Moon Knight's a close second. And I guess what it's reinforcing for me is I think no matter what somebody's superpowers are, no matter what their abilities are, to me the most interesting part of any of these characters is their psyche and how their mental situation, and that's what they're showcasing in Moon Knight and in WandaVision, which to me is why they're so interesting. So.
Well, I mean, and I have to agree with you. The wherewithal behind it all,
Right.
What's going on in the minds of these characters, and that's one of the reasons why Loki kind of fell short for me, is because Loki's one of those characters that even when you're like, what are his motivations? He basically comes out 2 seconds later and tells you what his motivations are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fact that, when he was falling in love with himself in the form of Sylvie,
Yeah.
and he's basically going, hey, what? It's the narcissistic way of Loki.
And he's such a great actor too.
You didn't really get any. I mean, you didn't really scratch the surface on Loki. It's the same character. And with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, as much fun as that could have been, there was too much where they just told you exactly what was going on, and you didn't get to think about it, because it's harder to delve into the psyche of a buddy cop drama.
Yeah, because Bucky, Winter Soldier is actually a really complex.
Yeah.
He's an out-of-time character.
Right.
He's psychologically damaged. He's been, so his psyche would be interesting to explore.
Well, now get ready for what's next on the block, because now it's going to get, I don't know, Brandon, I'm looking to see how you feel about it. You're going to get a big furry character.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. All right.
I'm not sure begging strips are going to work on Werewolf by Night,
Yeah,
but here's
I don't know who you're talking
another
about.
damaged character with some issues.
the thing is that the supernatural characters within the Marvel universe, and even before we get to see whatever they do to him in the cinematic universe,
Who are you talking about?
Werewolf by Night is I don't know if there's a good way of actually describing him. He's one of the Dark Pantheon characters. He's up there with Damon Hellstrom, who got his own series at one point recently. The Midnight Suns, Ghost Rider, Hannibal King, the Keepers of the Darkhold, things like that. Honestly, we touched on a little bit of that, in WandaVision and then in Doctor Strange.
Ghost Rider was like he's a possessed person. Werewolf by Night is a possessed person. Yeah. Moon Knight is a possessed person.
These are all characters who they are an avatar for something else.
Yes.
Okay.
A greater evil, because Moon Knight is not being backed by the happy side of the Pantheon.
Yeah.
See, but now did they form their own kind of Avengers with all the? Because I don't really.
There we go. Brandon's like, we bring Joe home.
Okay.
Yes.
No, I know, but that's not a selling point for me. See, I'm kind of tired of the whole team up thing. I like exploring these guys on their own.
That's the great thing though about. I mean, you saw the Avengers do their thing. You see the X-Men do their thing. Fantastic Four does their thing, but they're always better when they're together. The thing about the Midnight Suns and the various other supernatural characters in Marvel is that they have to come together to fight things. But usually, they don't like being around each other.
Good. Okay.
They don't want to be around
Blade
each other.
and Morbius do not like each other, but they have worked together when it comes down to it.
Yeah.
Because Mephisto doesn't care, and they're the only ones who can take him out.
I don't know. I feel like you lose when there's too many team ups. You just don't focus enough on whatever. But to me, the whole thing with Moon Knight is like, man, the minute you stick him with somebody else, it's giving us too much truth. Like, I don't want to really know the truth about Moon Knight. I want to still wonder, is any of this happening?
Well, wait till you got him and some guy that turns into a werewolf trying to team up long enough to do something without killing each other.
I want Joe to learn about D-Man.
Oh, that's true.
D-Man's, I mean, he's an Avenger.
Technically.
Okay. Well, the thing about Moon Knight,
he got a secret Dakota ring. We'll leave it like that.
Introducing Moon Knight this way to me makes a lot of sense because they had almost 6 hours of time to unpack his story. You really couldn't have done this in a movie effectively.
No, it would have been too rushed.
You would have had to stick there would have been too many things in there.
All you would have got there was a military contractor died in front of Khonshu, and Khonshu brought him back, and all right, now let's go fight the bad guy.
Yeah.
That's all you would have got. You would not have anywhere near the actual Moon Knight experience.
They would have fit everything you had that you needed to know about Moon Knight in the same amount of time that Tony was in the prison camp building his armor.
Yeah, exactly. That would have been your character development. Right. So, Disney Plus, for that reason alone, is kind of a useful storytelling vehicle.
I will give the powers at the MCU mad props for using all of the power available to them. Mm-hmm. Because, all right, let's say Moon Knight just didn't turn anybody on.
Yeah.
A very real chance. A very real chance, because this is not a big character.
And there are people who are not happy with it because it wasn't your basic, run in, beat them up, and run back out kind of thing.
I mean, this was a complicated story and once again, I'm hoping the acting community is paying attention to, and I'm not just going to say the MCU or just Disney. Yeah. I'm going to say everybody exploring from anime all the way to live action comic books, because we are really getting some pretty astounding acting jobs.
You're getting F. Murray Abraham, Ethan Hawke's great. I mean, so it's not embarrassing to be involved with a superhero movie.
If Ethan Hawke did not give you chills in this 6-hour series.
You talk about F. Murray Abraham and talking about prestige and stuff.
Right.
He lost his prestige. He did Mythic Quest. He will do anything that he thinks is fun.
No. F. Murray Abraham's first acting job was his best.
What?
You don't know what his first acting job was?
I know he was in Star Trek, but I thought...
No, his first big break onto the big screen, man. He was the Grapes in the Fruit of the Loom Underwood.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Thanks, Allan.
He jiggled a little too much for Joe. He blocked it out of his mind.
And of course he was great in in Amadeus and everything.
Well, he was fabulous in Amadeus.
But he takes anything you give him and runs with it. Seriously.
Runs well.
If you haven't seen Mythic Quest... his character is a little disturbing.
Yeah.
But
That's
he's amazing.
Underselling it,
Yeah.
But man, it's I think they wrapped it up, but they left enough out there on the table where it's obvious he's coming back. That's the whole thing. And that's the big debate is like, what's the best way to bring him to the next?
Well, but I'm still picking on Werewolf and Night going, all right, we're getting another one of these characters that's going to be usable like
true,
that.
But the next way you're going to see Moon Knight is him interacting with someone who is a mainstream Marvel character.
Yes.
And that is going to blow your mind.
That's what I wonder, though. Are we going to see him, or are we going to see Mark Spector interacting with?
You're going to get all three.
It's time you realize, Joe, Moon Knight is the character that they will deal with.
Very interesting. All right. Well, yeah, we highly recommend Moon Knight. Check it out, absolutely, and let us know what you think. But when we come back, we got to talk about another major Marvel property, and that is Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. We're going to review that when we come back.
Geek Tank Radio.
Use your aggressive feelings, boy. Let the heat flow through you.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
Brandon, you do that a lot, don't you?
Let the hate go through. Yeah, pretty much.
I hate to
Kind
say
of
it.
tingles.
Anyway,
If you keep that thing bottled up, eventually you do something bad.
yeah, that's true. Keep it out. Anyway, welcome back to Geek Tank Radio, everybody. I don't know, whatever. Let's just move along.
Somehow this show just went horribly a different direction. I'm not sure.
I'm Joe Thorderson here with my friends Brandon Olmstead and Allan Gilbreth and our buddy Max behind the glass. And I guess it's a Marvel-centric day, which, let's face it, every few months it's going to happen. I mean, it's either going to be Marvel, Star Wars, or something, but Disney's going to have their hooks in it.
You know what we don't talk about on this show anymore?
What?
Joe's hair.
Well, it's kind of a boring subject, so I mean, Anyway, but guys, so another spoiler
It's
warning.
under a cap that remains nameless.
If people are not up to date and they don't jump on this stuff as quick as we do, I guess they're going to tune out today and have to come back and listen to. If you do, go to geektankradio.com, probably the easiest way. Go there, but also visit Geek Tank Radio's Facebook page. But check out our past episodes, and then once you're caught up, then you can come back and see what.
Give us a like and subscribe. That way we can go with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a quick reminder, we want you to take advantage of our caller and text line. You can send us a message, and we'll get it. It could be any day of the week, and if it's interesting, we'll read it on the show. If you have a bad geek confession or an observation or just anything you want to say.
How about a good geek question?
Yeah, or a good geek question.
Ooh, we have a Brandon.
Yeah, but I'm not going to give you
The
free
Avengers had a Hulk. We have a Brandon.
You can ask me anything you want to ask me, but I'm not going to give you free passes for asking me a question. I need something entertaining.
Yeah, but it's
not something
entertaining
where
to us.
I'm going to be entertaining.
Well, that's true. If it's entertaining,
We'll be entertaining.
Well, that's true. If it's entertaining, we'll give you free passes to the Memphis Comic and Fantasy Convention, November. Well, actually, we have to make some announcements about that, but it's coming up in November. But call
and that could be from anywhere in the world, actually.
Yeah, call or text the Rick's Power Coding text line at or phone line, whatever, at 901-683-0989, and you can even send pictures as well.
I like the tech line.
I like data. Just call it a data line.
There you go. All right, well, guys, another spoiler warning, everybody. We're dealing in spoilers
there's a movie
again.
came out last night.
So Brandon and I were there. We went and saw Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness. And what was interesting, Brandon, is it was a pretty big group. There was about 7 of us. And Allie, our buddy, Allie Diggs, came with her boyfriend. And it was interesting because I was sitting in between Brandon and Allie. And that alone, I'm going to share later some of my observations about sitting next to a young, she's like 23 years old. So, I mean, it's like she's got her own.
Yeah.
Her own
she has a very
emotions
different
going
view
on.
of the world than you do.
Right, exactly. So
I want to take a moment though and thank the Malco for our upgrade.
Oh yeah, we got a free upgrade
because we purchased Atmos tickets, but then when they printed out our tickets, they moved us to the IMAX.
Oh,
because they oversold. I guess it's like an airline when they overbook or something.
They find the open seats or something. I don't know, but
pretty good seats
it was,
too.
It was interesting. I was not expected.
We got upgraded to the IMAX. So
and this is where I want to actually gripe for a second. And this is not about the movie.
Okay.
I enjoyed the movie. It's not everybody's going to be everybody's cup of tea, but I'm a horror guy, so it was perfect for me. And I love trailers. A lot of people are like, "Don't give me a trailer. I'm going to get spoiled." You show me anything. You show me all the trailers, all this. I don't need 8 IMAX trailers that are twice the length of regular trailers in front of one movie.
Wow.
Because I felt like I'd been on a roller coaster before we ever got to the movie. We had a really good Jurassic World Dominion trailer. We had a really cool sneak peek at Top Gun Maverick. We had Buzz Lightyear. We had Thor: Love and Thunder. We had Avatar: Way of Water, which is gorgeous.
Yes.
And
people are moving back to Pandora.
Yeah, and it was just it was an experience. I really did. I felt like I went through an emotional roller coaster, and the whole time on the other side of Joe, I see hands moving.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because Allie gets all she's definitely the target demographic for what they're going for.
But I mean, it's not really a gripe so much as if I had only had half of those, and then we went into the movie, it'd have been great.
Okay.
And then there was a 2-minute trailer for IMAX theaters.
Yeah. Okay.
Which I'm in an
Really,
IMAX.
we're in an IMAX.
Yeah.
We got you.
Well, when we sat down to watch the movie, I wanted to have a checklist because these days, of course, show, and I want to make sure I have my correct information. So, Brandon, one of the questions I asked you is, actually, technically, I guess this is only Doctor Strange 2, even though we've seen him in several movies. Right. Also, is this part of Marvel Phase 4? The other question was this the first movie since Disney acquired Fox? Well, I guess it wasn't. No, it's not. But so they can use the Fox properties and stuff, because we pretty much predicted a lot of what we were going to see in this movie in terms of just characters that might show up and things like that.
True.
So, but so it was sort of pivotal in that regard, right? Just because it's kind of a noteworthy time in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I guess you could say.
And since
post Thanos, all that other stuff. This
past week, the trailers alone have given away a lot of the surprises about this movie, which I feel if they could have waited, another week. Beforehand, so that the people who were, like bound and determined to be there for those first showings, like we are, could have still been a little surprised. But
yeah, if you go on YouTube, you're not going to get any surprises. So,
there's literally, I'm not even saying YouTube. Watch TV. There's literally only one character in the midst of all the character cameos that is not revealed in the the TV trailers right now, and that's because it shows up in the mid-credit stinger.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, when Smog came walking through looking for his voice, I just fell out laughing.
Well, I will say this, Brandon. The one who steals the show is Elizabeth Olsen as Scarlet Witch, and she's awesome. You talk about somebody that really sells the character and really makes you care about everything she's going through. Even I'm going to just, I don't know if I'm supposed to cut to the chase now, Brandon, and say I liked
territory at this point, but let's just go for it.
Okay. Well, my thing is basically, you know how there's movies where you see them and there's the excitement, and then once you have time to ponder it, it's like, okay, you put it in a different context. So I definitely liked the movie, but my feeling watching this is I don't know, man. I feel like they shoehorned in a lot of things that were basically commercials. Like, hey, we can now use every Fox character out there. Here's Professor Xavier. Hey, here's Reed Richards. Here's this. I don't know. To me, the multiverse is almost like a crutch where you can throw anything in there, but to me, it lowers all the stakes. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's just my problem.
It is. It's completely your problem.
Okay.
Because
okay, one universe blows up. Well, there's 8 trillion more, or what? I don't know. That's my problem. It's like,
I mean, have you never read comics?
No,
the multiverse has always been a thing, Joe.
I've never cared about that.
There's a billion Batmans out there.
That's why I read Batman. I've never cared about that. There's a billion Batmans out there. That's why I read Batman, because I want to know about an individual and all that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Which one?
Well, I'm just sharing my feeling on it.
There's only 40 of them.
But they really said this 52. Is the multiverse. I will say that. They
were
jumping all over the place, right?
Well, except for the fact that they weren't. We saw maybe 3-4 genuine universes. The whole erratic, universe sliding where they go from being cartoons to cubism to paint.
Yeah.
That's not there's no exploring those worlds. But I mean, all this got set up with Loki, and Loki broke things, and that's why we've got people traversing the multiverse now.
Right.
I think. I mean, we saw what I don't remember what the number is. I'll have to see the movie a couple more times before I catch it. But we also saw that for the first time, I'll have to see the movie a couple more times before I catch it. But we also saw that for the first time, someone within the Marvel Cinematic Universe referred to the world we've been watching as Earth 616.
Yeah, that was
now,
cool.
I am sure there's a lot of internet nerds out there that are freaking out, going, no, that's not right, because the Marvel Cinematic Universe, in their mind, has been given a different designation than the comic universe. But the comics don't exist in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and therefore, it is Earth 616.
Yeah.
And I want to say that theirs was like, the one we were on was like 830 something. Doctor Strange was lauded as a hero. Bruce Campbell was the pizza papa, and who first gives you the whole thing about the Strange Museum,
Right.
which is kind of a dig at certain other people from the distinguished competition.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where we see Reed Richards, and we see Monica Rambeau him in the Inhumans TV series.
Yeah.
We saw Charles Xavier as portrayed by Patrick Stewart, but not the Patrick Stewart that we know, not the Xavier we know from the Fox X-Men movies, because this one is full on the ultra tech savvy. He's got the hover chair and everything. And seeing John Krasinski as Reed Richards made a lot of fans happy, because they've been fan casting him to play that ever since they said, we're going to do a Fantastic Four movie now.
Is that going to happen, though, where, like, is he I love John Krasinski, but I just wasn't feeling it here. I was like, okay. Maybe they just didn't give him the right dialogue, because he's sitting there facing off against Scarlet Witch. I'm like, what is he going to do? The guy stretches and she can blow you up with a thought. It's like, what good is this going to do?
Hey, Fight Boy, just sit in the corner. This is the reason why Joe will always be beaten by those kind of characters, because they're going to use this is the reason why Joe will always be beaten by those kind of characters, because they're going to use their mind, and he's going, what are you gonna?
Yeah.
Why are my feet stuck to the floor?
Yeah. Anyway.
It's a Gryffindor.
It's a Gryffindor.
It's a
thing.
Gryffindor.
But I think the thing that really got me jazzed was seeing Hayley Atwell as Captain Carter, which goes ahead and tells you, guys. What If is in continuity.
Well, I love her. She's like one of my favorite characters. But I have to say, when she did the whole thing of I could do this all day, I guess, I don't know, man.
Yeah, it was
stuff
almost as cheesy when Steve says it.
Yep.
I guess that's what's bugging me.
Yeah.
I'm like, I think there's a real fine line between just fan service and just good storytelling, because I saw just way too much fan service in this versus.
Hold up. All right, we're going to have to stop now,
And then
because
I
I have seen too many things that you fall in love with that is nothing but 98% unadulterated fan service. We just like the noir Batman.
Yeah,
Because really, there's no reason why that movie, outside of having a bat logo, made any money.
Can I say one thing too, Brandon? Because sitting next to Allie, one of the things I observed was, now granted, anybody that knows Allie, if you've met her or if you've heard her on the show before, okay, she is a person that wears her heart on her sleeve, and it is not hard to get her to get an emotional response, good or bad, from her, right? So throughout the movie,
you're gonna know right then.
she's either cheering. She literally cried, I think, 3 times during the movie at various points.
Right.
And so when I'm watching it, though, the moments that she got really excited and gung-ho were moments that I almost tried to stop from laughing, because I'm like, okay, come on, whatever. Like, to me, it was hokey.
Right, yeah.
But I'm like, maybe I'm not the target demographic
Well,
for this movie,
no.
because I don't think I am
it's-
anymore, man. I think there's something I don't know what.
It's not.
I haven't drank the Kool-Aid or something.
It's not.
I haven't drank the Kool-Aid or something.
Well,
I don't know,
you're not the
All right,
target.
Maestro in a Cubs hat.
You're not.
Yeah.
You're not the target demographic, but there were plenty of things in there for you to enjoy as well.
Oh no, it was fun. It was
it's
definitely a
like-
fun movie. Yeah,
But yeah, the younger audiences who they feel about this the way like a young me felt watching Transformers the movie in theaters back in the 80s, or watching E.T. I've told the story 1,000 times, if I've told it once, about Endgame being an experience ruined for me because we were in a packed IMAX theater, and while the movie was great, the girl sitting next to me was crying, ugly sobbing so bad through the whole movie, and I'm just sitting there going,
distracting you. Yeah.
It's like, I want to be able to hear what's going on. Stop it.
Yeah.
But, it's she got emotional.
She was totally
laughed to the cry. And it's like the only time she didn't cry was when they were talking about how the Back to the Future isn't real time travel. And I think it's because she was going, "What's Back to the Future?"
Yeah. Okay. But in this one too, Brandon, I don't know, man.
I'm going to go ahead and say something else, and,
Okay.
and this is definitely it happens like 15 minutes into the movie, but it is kind of a spoiler because I kind of tried to avoid showing it in the trailers.
We've warned spoilers. Yeah.
Wanda is the villain, which makes a lot
Yeah.
of people who I've talked with already feel like, well, she had this amazing hero arc in WandaVision, and now they're going to make her the villain. I say those people didn't watch WandaVision correctly.
Yeah,
Correct.
WandaVision,
Because while she realized that she needed to release those people from the Hex,
yeah,
she does not come out of that as the hero.
and
She
people,
beat Agatha, but you know what? I've seen Doctor Doom and Magneto fight. I'm not cheering for either of them.
yeah.
I'm ducking. I don't want to be anywhere near it because they're gonna level something.
Wanda's great because you don't forget. Allan said it in the past. She was like basically a guinea pig in a lab experiment.
And
she was very badly
Can
treated.
we talk about the nefarious marketing of this movie?
Okay.
All right, hold on. Wanda wants her kids back. She is a mother feeling lost.
She actually has good motivation.
Which has always been great about Marvel characters is because the majority of them, even in the comics, the majority of your villains do have a sympathetic reasoning behind what they're doing. But she wants her kids back. She's willing to kill another child to take the power to be able to basically jump from dimension to dimension to keep her children safe once she has them. Mm-hmm. But this child this child that she's going to kill also lost her mom. She's from a society of women, a universe of strictly women. It's a very natural thing, not like the Amazons from Themyscira. I mean, this is like a genuine alien universe,
Right.
So there's mom loss and mom's loss of children. The name of the movie is Multiverse of Madness.
Right.
Everything is abbreviating it as Mom.
Yeah.
And it's opening on Mother's Day weekend. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you talk about it. There was all sorts of stuff that Marvel was going to get our money for.
Okay.
But so I mean, it's an amazing story as it is. I think you could have done this story and had it just as much of an impact without the fan service, as Joe's referring to it. I think it was a good way to introduce the fact that Doctor Strange is going to need to bring together the Illuminati. He's going to have to go find Reed Richards, who
is not on this one. He's over on that one
so far. Right. And Black Bolt, Namor, the original members of the Illuminati.
Now let me get excited about that one.
Yeah.
That one I want to see.
So I think that's one of the reasons that this inspired that. But this movie is very, very divisive.
Well, but Elizabeth Olsen, because seeing her as a villain and killing people, spoiler is it's a little upsetting because she, but I thought, Brandon, if I'm paying attention, she's being possessed as well. So she's not doing this.
Ever since she came in contact with the Darkhold.
Yes.
She's been corrupted.
What is the Darkhold? They talked about it, but I didn't fully understand
it.
The
Darkhold is the book of dark magics.
And we saw that at the end of WandaVision, right? Okay.
Agatha had it in her in her possession.
Okay.
Wanda took it when she imprisoned Agatha.
Right. Okay.
Agatha had it in her in her possession.
Okay.
Wanda took it when she imprisoned Agatha. The Darkhold, there are only certain individuals who can hold the Darkhold without being corrupted by it, but they will never use it. There was an entire comic book about those characters. They also, as we talked about in the earlier segment, they are connected with the Midnight Suns and the pantheon of supernatural characters of Marvel.
Okay.
The Darkhold has possessed Wanda, and once you delve into it, Sinister Strange referred to the toll you have to pay.
Right.
Which Wanda, as you saw, once she realized what she was doing and how wrong it was,
Yeah.
And she sacrificed herself to make sure that no one would ever be tempted by and corrupted by the Darkhold again. Spoilers, sorry guys.
Yeah. Well, one version of
Aftermath, she destroys every copy of the Darkhold.
Right. Yeah.
Which honestly can't happen in the Marvel Universe. There will still be
somebody's going to dig one up.
A copy somewhere within the multiverse.
So in that sense, though, she's the villain, but then she's also a sympathetic. I guess she's a hero because at the end, she it's just like the way Darth Vader sacrificed himself to save Luke at the end. So, right? I mean,
and
it's even worse because she was possessed. So,
I'm going to say it's a very straight on Marvel trope, comic wise. How many characters have we seen that were possessed that in the long run used the dark power that they had gotten from their possession to save the world?
Yeah.
I mean, Phoenix in the X-Men comics. When Jean Grey was possessed by the Phoenix in the X-Men animated series, that was not really how it happened in the comics. Phoenix kind of replaced her. But we've seen the Phoenix Force in the Marvel Universe corrupt people. Force in the Marvel Universe corrupt people, characters from across the board. Right now in the comics, Echo, who we saw in the Hawkeye series.
Yeah.
Echo has the Phoenix Force.
Yeah.
Well, we're also getting introduced to these darker side characters just in time for the multiverse to introduce us, or I should say, solidify these darker side of possessions or influences going forward as we start leaning into the monsters and the things that go bump in the dark.
True. And what you're seeing here in right now, ever since Loki broke the multiverse by getting rid of Kang.
Yeah. Spoiler. Sorry, we've got.
If you haven't watched Loki, you don't care.
Yeah.
At this point.
The whole point behind Loki season 2 will be solidifying a prime timeline. And that's when you're going to have characters that, you're going to get teased in these multiverse movies who are going to be part of the natural fabric of things going into phase 5.
Yeah.
And that's when we're going to get our Fantastic Four movies and our X-Men movies.
Can I offer one critique, though? This was my observation during the movie, because I love Benedict Cumberbatch, who I can never pronounce his name. I love and Elizabeth Olsen is probably becoming one of my favorite actors.
She really is just amazing.
Great. Like every second she's on. However, I feel like what I experienced here was a difference between participating in a movie and observing a movie. I felt like I was observing this movie and I wasn't fully engaged in the premise. I don't know if they gave me the premise enough maybe you picked it up, Brandon, but I was like, I've been in movies where I feel like I'm engaged and I'm a part of it. This one I didn't quite have that. I was observing it.
I think this one really kind of delves deep into that psyche of a comic read collector.
Yeah.
Someone who goes the gamut and just doesn't choose two characters they like and run with those. Because this felt like a Marvel summer crossover.
Okay. Yeah, it was it was definitely a crossover, as crossover as you can get. But we recommend it. We highly recommend. I don't know how many stars I'll give this one. I'll give it 3 out of 5. Maybe 3.5. I don't know. Brandon, what do you say?
I don't use a rating system like that. I liked it. Go see it.
Okay.
If you don't like it, then you still spent your money on it. So I'm going to get another one.
You're going to need it as a point of reference going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one thing Marvel has done. They do not make movies. They make a TV series on a big screen.
Yeah. Anyway. All right. Well, guys, first hour of Geek Tank Radio is in the can. We have our digital content coming up, and we'll probably dip into the mailbag. We've got some philosophical discussions and lots of other interesting content that you're going to want to check out over at geektankradio.com.
Absolutely.
But it's time to get out of here. So until next week, we are the Geek Patrol, and I am Joe Thorderson.
I'm Allan Gilbreth.
I'm Maximilian.
And I am Brandon Olmstead, challenging you to pick up a couple of omnibuses and read through them.
Geek Tank Radio, News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
And welcome to Hour 2 of Geek Tank Radio. I'm Joe Thorderson, here with my friends Brandon Olmstead and Allan Gilbreth, and our buddy Max over there behind the glass. And if you missed Hour 1, never fear, because it was a pretty interesting discussion, Marvel-centric. We covered the finale of Moon Knight. Brandon and I and a few other of our friends went and saw Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness, and we kind of unpack that. And once it's posted, you can check that out.
I do want to mention one more thing before we get into our upcoming segment.
Okay.
And did you notice, Joe, for the first time, it wasn't Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness, or Strange 2, the Multiverse of Madness. It's Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. It's kind of like pulling something from those old, like the golden age of cinema, where it's like,
that is true.
The character in the name of the movie is The Multiverse of Madness, but the character Doctor Strange in The Multiverse. I really want movies to go back to doing that.
I think that's cool.
I think that was kind of cool.
Although in truth, it should have been, Scarlet Witch stole the whole movie. So.
You can't necessarily, although there was an aspect of old-fashioned cinema that I like, but you couldn't do it in Marvel because it'd mess everything up, is having the credits at the beginning. So you would have to have the post-credit spoiler at the beginning of the movie.
Except for not, because there's plenty of times where the Screen Actors Guild will let you get away without telling someone. You're still going to get your technical stuff at the very end. But, you can get away with not crediting the people who show up for your stingers if they're on screen for a small amount of time.
Yeah, okay.
I'm just surprised Deadpool didn't walk out in the intro with a bag of popcorn and sit down and go, let's do this.
Oh, he was sitting on the other side of Allie.
Yeah. But anyway, this hour, guys, we're gonna definitely open the mailbag because we have sort of an interesting conversation, and we're not going to tease anything beyond that because it's possible these subjects alone might be rich enough to carry the day, and we don't want to rush our conversation. Sometimes we get into areas where it gets pretty interesting.
Oh, yeah.
So, all right, Allan, we're looking at you, man.
Hail science!
Cool. Well, how about some really, hot off the press cold news?
Cold. Okay, there we go. I'm sure you're going to explain what that
I'm
means.
going to take a nap.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, here we go.
Because when I get too hot, I want to be really cold.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's go to Antarctica then.
Oh,
cool.
yeah, fascinating.
There you go. That's as
That's
cold
cool.
as we can get there, as fast as we can get there.
Antarctica's at the bottom.
Yes.
I'm just making sure
Yes,
because
Joe.
it's easy to. No, I know. For our
No.
listeners.
Hey, we just went through a whole multiverse thing. There could be
that's
universes where it's at
that's
the
a
top.
very valid question after the movies we've been watching and the TV shows we've been
Right.
watching.
Right.
Down below. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Well, let's get in the area known as the Williams Ice Stream, and
We'll take your word for it.
let's talk
Allan's
about
vacation
global
headquarters.
warming. Let's
Yeah.
talk about lost civilizations. Last ice age we had, the oceans were greatly retracted. There was a lot more land exposed.
Okay.
All right. And there is even the thought that, well, we're finding fossils in Antarctica these days. So at some point in time, Antarctica wasn't buried under ice.
And we as we discussed in our Conspiracy Nation, we talked about how they did actual core samples and found foliage and all sorts of plants
exactly.
and everything down there. So,
All right.
Yeah.
We live in the Mid-South. Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Memphis in particular is famous for its water.
Sure. Are we famous? I never heard of it till I lived here, but anyway.
It's really kind of funny, Joe. When I was, I want to say I was like 15 years old. I volunteered for the World Police and Fire Games. And people from around the world were actually buying Memphis bottled water at our stand.
Nice. Okay.
Well, welcome to artesian water,
There you
groundwater,
Right. Underground wells.
underground water,
Or aquifers, they're called.
or an aquifer.
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
All right.
Okay.
Antarctica is dirt, right?
Is it?
Yeah, I mean, technically, yeah.
Is land under there.
Yeah.
That's not like the Arctic, which is just floating ice.
Right, because on the top, we've discussed this as well. The North Pole is basically a floating sheet of ice.
It is a
which
ice
is very
cap.
interesting. Yeah,
It is
consider.
not the same thing as Antarctica. Antarctica is fundamentally a gargantuan source of glaciers.
The Arctic kind of looks like the splotches of hair on the Joker in the Batman movie.
Ugh.
Yeah,
Okay.
there you go. That's nice.
Okay.
So, we've done all of this dancing around the topic to actually make the topic make sense. Believe it or not, there is groundwater in Antarctica.
Okay. I think I understand what groundwater. It's basically under the ground. And
It's under
not
the ground,
frozen,
right?
Because it would be beneath the. It would be like here in Tool Talk Radio.
It's insulated.
Alan, we talk about the frost line. Like when you're making a fence, you have to dig. Depending on the part of the country. When I lived in Chicago,
Man, here we go.
The frost line, I believe, was 24 inches.
Right.
Yeah, but
maybe 36. I don't remember.
That was in the Tool Talk multiverse. We're over here now.
Right, but that's the level that things will freeze up. So you have to put it below that so that it doesn't swell up and make the fence post come out. So
exactly. All right. Well, let's go to West Antarctica. In your face, Brandon. I got a post that stayed still.
Yeah.
Without ceiling foam. West Antarctica. Here we go. Groundwater. Apparently, there's a lot of groundwater. Like 10 times the volume of the amount of ice and water above it.
Drinking, I'm sure, probably great drinking water, right?
It's ancient. It's been trapped down there for as long as there has been ice above it.
Okay. Maybe it's not great because you want water to move. You don't want it to.
Well, but there's so much of it. It's basically like discovering Lake Michigan under there.
Oh wow! This
is a massive hydrological system, and the reason this gets interesting is kind of like, okay, big deal. We found more water.
That sounds pretty interesting to me, man.
Well, all right. There's a lot of water under here. There's a huge, massive lake. There's this huge storage. So when water compresses, when ice pushes down on the soil, it compresses it down.
Okay.
Those glaciers came down, and we have basically the Midwest of the country where a lot of glaciers came down, and it's a lot flatter.
Yeah.
The mountains are on the outside edges. The center of the country is pretty flat.
Yeah,
Thank you, driving
bowl.
to Chicago.
Right.
It's pretty flat.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. But water doesn't compress like that. So here we have an area that's not giving way under there. So how well is that moving that ice around up there?
I'm sort of getting lost, Alan. What do you mean? Okay, so.
All right. So let's take a cinder block and put it on an incline. It's not going to budge. 30-degree incline. Cinder block is not going to budge at all. Now, what if I start pumping water under that cinder block?
I guess it'll slide down the hill.
Eventually,
Is that what you're
when
talking
the water pressure exceeds the resistance, that cinder block is going down the hill.
Okay, I gotcha. Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah.
So this has not been a factor in predicting glacial movements and ice shelves in Antarctica because we didn't really know about it.
Okay, so they weren't dealing with the hydro pressures and everything under the ice because they just thought it was a bunch of land and rocks and whatever.
Exactly, and now we're discovering that whoa, wait a minute, this might be a lot more fluid than we actually thought.
Yeah,
we've got volcanic areas in Antarctica that can provide warm areas and even open soil.
Mm-hmm.
And we have certain aspects down there, but we also have giant ice sheets that we're hoping really don't break off anytime soon.
Okay,
but all of our computer models have been based on things being stable.
Question. Did they discover this through scanning or through drilling, or what technology is what's going to start changing the world almost more than anything else?
You're dead on the money.
Yeah.
This is indeed scanning technologies where we can now penetrate the ice sheet trying to figure out what Antarctica looks like underneath there, and suddenly we're going, whoa. There's a lot more liquid water down there than we thought.
Yeah.
Now, again, the North Pole, it's a floating ice cap. We kind of got that. We've sent submarines completely underneath it. You can't do that down here because this is a full continent, complete with continental drift, complete with a lot of ice sheets. And we've got groundwater that is apparently extending downward for more than a kilometer.
Wow.
So this is deep. This is heavy duty. Now, what this does, it brings up a lot of what ifs.
Yeah.
So, what ifs?
Yeah.
So, just personally here at home, we have a little thing called global warming. How does this affect the movement of the ice sheets? What happens? what's going to happen as this stuff continues to melt?
Yeah.
Is it moving faster or slower than we thought? Is this an accelerant or does this slow things down? We don't know. We just found out it was there.
Well, I'm just imagining all the implications. Like if you look at our globe and maybe you go down the first 50 miles into the surface of the earth, for all we know, it could look like Swiss cheese. There could be a tunnel of this water could be a part of a tunnel system that goes up to Australia or whatever. There could be all sorts of underground networks of materials we've never even thought of or whatever. Who knows? It's a total mystery down there, man.
Well, having caverns, especially a number in Tennessee, this stuff can connect all over the place.
Alone has got broad, because what could be affecting Antarctica could be actually triggered by something happening up in Michigan. We don't know. I'm just saying, if you picture an underground tunnel system or something.
I'll take it even further. If you get to the Ring of Fire, which the Antarctica is a part of, we have an entire volcanic network that rings all the way around the Pacific Ocean.
Oh, that's a good point, too.
So here you have a lot of seismic capability. And again, this is a full-size continent with continental drift. It's moving just like every other continent is moving. So first implication is just directly for us and how much ice is locked into this, how much water is locked into this. The next thing I'm going to throw out is that basically this seawater has been frozen and isolated under there. You might say it's a living fossil.
Huh.
Because now suddenly this brings up dramatic thoughts of it's under miles of ice. It's under an amazing amount of pressure. It is a full groundwater. Could this be happening on Mars?
Well, funny you mentioned that, because it's funny how our minds think alike, Alan, because what I would, up until, actually, honestly, until you started doing your science segments, I had a totally a different view of Mars. I pictured it as a big, just dead rock, kind of like the moon, where it's just like, okay, and then you start to realize, well, wait a minute, there could actually be oceans of water under there that are frozen, and now sand is blown over the top. So there might be, a mile of sand, but when you dig below that, all of a sudden, boom, you got water everywhere. So who knows?
All right. Tag on of Mars is very cold.
Yep.
And Mars actually has a lot of deposits of frozen carbon dioxide.
Jeremy Veldman mentioned that.
Yeah, he did. He was talking about that.
Yeah.
And on May 3rd, there was a study in the Planetary Science that said some of these larger deposits actually flow like our glaciers flow.
Oh, boy. There we go. Yep.
So
everything's moving, man.
Welcome to nothing is as stable as you thought it was.
No, everything's in motion. Yeah.
It also brings
and they're getting bombarded by meteors all the time, too, which whatever that does to the mix, you get a giant, thing the size of Texas hitting your planet. That's going to... that's going to cause some damage and some change. So
you get slammed by something the size of a pickup truck at 19,000 miles per second. It has a tendency to at least interrupt the surface a little bit.
Yeah.
So here we go. We've got massive deposits of frozen materials. We've got this capability that the pressure alone could be keeping liquid below it.
Mm-hmm.
So also it's been isolated and it's a huge body of water, which means it could theoretically harbor some form of life.
Well, that's the other thing you start wondering. What kind of life exists subterranean?
Yeah, what microbes or little thingies would be living in that amount of water that has been isolated for this length of time? Because it's been isolated since the ice covered it.
So Jurassic Park may be it may be an underwater situation. Maybe we're gonna. Who knows what we're unleashing? Maybe it's better that they're kept isolated under this. Don't mix the. They say don't cross the streams.
Literally, don't cross the streams.
Yeah.
So this brings up, and this. Well, this
Brandon's
also
been pretty quiet, but he's been giving me dirty looks the whole time.
He's just been admiring.
Okay.
This also brings up implications for exoplanets.
Okay.
Because we are finding planets now, like wholesale.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was not a topic. And I mean, I remember my first, high school class on, the great universe out there. The question when I was there was, maybe we'll find a planet out there somewhere.
Yeah.
These days, they've got a calculator over there that looks like it's racking up the national debt, going, and we found another planet and another planet and another planet. So apparently planets are not rare.
No, and wait till that James Webb really kicks into gear. That's gonna be
we haven't even gotten to where we're looking at somebody and saying, "Smile, it's time for your close-up."
Yeah, yep.
So Mars has got deposits of carbon dioxide. It's ice. It can flow. It can move like a glacier. We're discovering on our own planet that stuff is way too interesting. We have an entire fossilized lake. I guess that's a good way of thinking of it. Isolated, if you wish to call it that. Mm-hmm. But it's been isolated for a very long time.
Pre-nuclear.
Definitely all way before mankind and all that. Antarctica's been locked in ice now for a minute or two. A few million years.
So the big story, I guess, is just the fact that we can start detecting this stuff, right? I mean, is that kind of the whole...
Well, and that does bring us to kind of the moral of the story, because I was watching a quick little show on the History Channel last night in which they had basically an ROV, a powered vehicle, and they were running it down. They were running it down the entrance to a cave system, and halfway down, they're taking pictures as they're going through this old mine, and one of the old boys looks at it and goes, "All right, well, let's get an environmental reading on the ROV." So the guy presses a couple of buttons on the laptop and comes back and goes, "Well, there ain't no oxygen down there. You die the minute you got down there."
Yeah.
So it was able to do a gas reading. And then they went, okay, let's turn on the LiDAR. Now, this is on a remote operated vehicle. Mm-hmm. In a cave. This guy's playing with like a little drivey car.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so this wasn't, a giant military vehicle out at sea. This was something he brought in a suitcase in the back of his pickup truck.
Right.
And it had LiDAR. It had cave mapping software. It had ground penetrating radar. It'll survey right there in the center of the cave and told you, about 100 feet into this thing, you're going to die.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because you're talking about, I mean, you're talking not only about like liquid, like water or, oil, I guess, or things like that. You're also talking about there could be big pockets of gas deposits.
Exactly.
And any number of gas. It could be, I don't know what, methane, natural gas. There could be, you start mixing these things together, and you do have the recipe for a monster movie, don't you?
Well,
I mean,
and just as a side venture, one of these treasure hunter shows not too long ago, the guy is crawling around in the cave, and his hands turned bright red.
Okay.
So it was like, "Are you bleeding? What is wrong with you?" And they had actually found a store of basically a parasite bug.
Yeah.
That ancient native peoples collected, freeze-dried, and used as pigments.
Oh, my gosh. Okay.
So
wow.
He found a treasure, just not the gold and silver treasure he's looking for. This was a dye. Huh. And you think back 1,000 years ago, a really good color, a really good stain, a really good dye. We've had entire wars fought over less than that.
Geez, Allan, you made me think of quite a number of things, but now I'm thinking of something else. If, like a lot of our ancestors, of course, it was easier to just move into a cave than it was to go build a house. We didn't even have that many tools or anything. Well, I feel like our ancestors would have been really into cave exploration, and they would have probably, I bet we're going to find a lot of archaeological evidence of things that happened. It could have happened 2,000 years ago. It's like, well, it's a lot warmer in here, and so maybe they set up their headquarters. I don't know.
Welcome to modern exploration. We have got some tools, and we're going to find out more and more and more interesting things than we ever thought possible.
Pretty cool, man. Okay, so yeah, just the future is very,
like I say, the universe is more interesting than we ever thought it could be.
Okay. Well, okay, that was pretty good, Alan, I have to admit. So, next,
you act surprised.
When we come back, we're gonna let Brandon finally talk. Well, you could have talked before,
dude. I was listening. I was fascinated.
Okay, but we're gonna dive into the Geek Tank Radio mailbag. You're listening to Geek Tank Radio here on News Talk 98.9 The Roar of Memphis. We'll be right back.
Geek Tank Radio. Nerd! News Talk 98.9 The Roar of Memphis.
Yeah, we own that, Max. It's not going to insult me.
I'm gonna say that is completely wrong. The only one of us that's smart enough to be a nerd is Allan.
Good point. Anyway, welcome back to...
cooped up in a booth with you guys for 3 hours. You can get a little passive-aggressive.
That's true. Welcome back to Geek Tank Radio. I'm Joe Thorderson here with my friends Brandon Olmstead and Alan Gilbreth and our buddy Max behind the glass. And, after one of Alan's science segments, my brain really does hurt. And then off the air, all sorts of new questions arise, and it just, I don't know, but the future is very interesting. The more we delve into this stuff,
the more we delve into the future, it connects to the past, and it makes Joe's brain feel like the multiverse of madness.
Absolutely.
It does.
So, and we real quick before we move along, we want to remind everybody, if you want to get in touch with us and tell us what you think of some, there's many ways to do it. You can, for one, well, I shouldn't say either or. You should do all of these things. First,
all of the above.
First stop, go to the Geek Tank Radio Facebook page, like the show, check it out, and there's all sorts of links up there. Send us, your thoughts that way. Go to geektankradio.com. You'll find more things with our past shows. You can communicate with us that way, send us messages. And, of course, you can also contact us through the Rick's Powder Coating text and call line at 901-683-0989 and get in touch with us that way any day of the week if you want to leave a voice message or a text, and you can even send pictures through the text. So stay in touch, and if it's interesting, we'll read it on the air, and we'll even give you passes to the Memphis Comic and Fantasy Convention. So
don't promise anything yet.
If we
you have to make it entertaining. I can't make it entertaining for you for those passes.
Okay. Well,
I got something awesome in the mailbag right now.
Okay. Well, let's talk about it.
Bag right now.
Okay. Well, let's talk about it.
Mail time.
Ooh, the mail's here. That means we get to see our old friend, Mailbox.
Okay. All right.
I did not sign off on that music, but it works.
It works.
Hey, it's a blast from my childhood.
Exactly.
Yeah, but you're 12.
I like this music. All right, so Brandon, this didn't trigger you, right?
No,
so people
no,
are figuring out how this works.
This actually got me intrigued, and I wanted to hear you guys talk about it a little bit.
Okay.
I was I was very happy to find this one. This individual did not sign their email, so I won't be throwing anybody under the bus. But I don't really think this is one of those questions where you have anybody to throw under the bus.
No,
they write, Dear GTR, what is your opinion about fan fiction and fan-made films, and are there any that you recommend?
Okay. And quit rubbing your hands together, Alan. We know your feelings.
Before we even I'm going to go ahead and field this to begin with. I think that fan fiction and fan-made films helps to inspire the rest of your fandom. Too often our fandom, it goes towards negative things because there's something out there you don't like. And then these guys will step in and they'll give you a story that may be better than some of the original source material they're basing it on.
Well, it's a fan.
Right.
A fan made it.
Right.
So, yeah.
But
right.
but as we saw with Star Wars, fans don't agree on anything.
That's a good point.
So in a lot of cases, you're taking a risk to put something out there that you feel very strongly about, especially creatively. And I think that fan fiction and fan-made films are awesome. I personally am not going to recommend any individual ones because I have also seen plenty of times in the past that if you put too much attention towards one, then you get then you get the negative trolls going after it, and you can stifle someone's creativity when they see all their YouTube comments saying, this is trash. When we don't need that. That's you want to be that kind of fan. Go away. I don't care. I don't need you around.
Yeah.
But personally, I'm a horror guy.
Right.
And as horror has evolved over the 40 years I've been alive, I've watched horror go from the cut 'em up slasher, Saturday Night Drive-In movies, to the more meta horror, where everybody knows the rules movies. But you never really get enough. You don't really get the psychological stuff. And to watch some of the filmmakers out there, like a friend of ours, Corey Kaufman, who he's one of the DeSoto County Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
He's been involved with a few that really delve into the areas that these universes don't have time to get to, because your typical horror movie is usually about, an hour and 30 minutes max, because they want to get as many of them showings in the theater as possible.
Right.
Fan films aren't, stuck by that, so they, go on. I've also read some amazing stuff within the wizarding world where fans have written, what their thoughts are. It was like this little, nobody character that the bigwigs at Warner's or even, Rowling herself will pay any attention to. And they'll give you a story that actually makes you care about these characters.
Yeah, fan fiction, and I guess we should also clarify, because back in the day before the internet really was a thing, and especially before YouTube, I think we were mostly talking about fan-written stories, right? Yeah. I mean, I don't know how many people made. Maybe there was a handful that got a hold of their 8mm,
I'm going to say it camera, as a Star Wars kid growing up. There was a long period of time between Return of the Jedi coming out and us actually being able to own copies of it, and you just had to be lucky that it came on TBS or TNT or HBO. Yeah, so you could watch it. We continued those stories as kids. We continued them with the toys. We had our own storylines going all the time.
Right.
We didn't necessarily put any of that to paper, but it's a creative fan fiction outlet. And sometimes, it's like you could entertain your friends just as much as anything else.
Yeah, I think too, and I guess I'm just going to quickly mention, my feelings about the fan fiction thing too, that we have freedom of speech in this country, so if you don't,
sometimes,
and some people like to just take stories about characters you might really like, and they make them kind of weird and even a little kinky and kind of whatever. You just got to take that with a grain of salt. That's the way they're going to do it. But
because that happens in their headcanon doesn't mean it has to be something that you take offense to.
Right.
Because your headcanon's its own multiverse.
Yeah, but I think that's going to throw it out there. It's out there, and we have to discuss it. No matter what your feelings about Vic Mignogna are, the Star Trek Continues is pretty darn. It's one of the top fan-made I guess you could call it TV show. Or web series.
There's an individual, and I mean, I don't want to get too much into what went on with Vic and his trial, his defamation trial, and all that jazz. But there was an individual who was very staunchly against his behavior at conventions, who has said multiple times that Star Trek Continues is an amazing series and that it's better than most of what Paramount is putting out now.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like it's conceivable that you could have fan-made productions that at one point they might exceed or get more interest than the original content that they're making. I mean, if you made a fan-made film or a fan-made series about some show from the 70s, you might start getting more views than them. So I don't know.
But the problem is that, when you have things like, and I'm going to go, but the problem is that, when you have things like, and I'm going to go ahead and say the dreaded word, Axanar.
I was ready to jump on that because I have very strong feelings about that Axanar.
But I mean, that one is the one because of how much funding and everything they were getting and how much, Roddenberry, lore that is in there. Mm-hmm. They kind of cross that line where, you bring the unwanted attention of the studios on you. And there's a lot of people who got their projects pretty much, slashed and burned because of that.
Yeah, and I guess we should just mention quickly, if you don't know anything about the Axanar project, they basically raised a bunch of money because I guess they did their own little short film, and it was really well done. Everybody agreed it was great, and then they wanted to do something bigger. Well, they raised so much money that they said, "Hey, we're going to build our own studio, and we're gonna get the highest tech equipment and everything," which I suppose in theory would be okay, but then they said once we're done with this, we're opening Axanar Star Trek fandom, and that's really crossing the line because that's not what people donated for.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, and the fact that once you start, making money off of someone's IP that you are not licensing,
right,
you get into a lot of trouble.
Yeah,
and
he did,
and that is when I pull and go, ding, my turn.
Yeah.
Okay. Fanfic is, of course, the highest form of flattery for any characterization or book or whatever that's out there.
Yeah, that's true. If you care enough about it,
Rule number 1, it ain't yours.
Yeah.
Let's just start there. Let's just throw out rule number 1. It's not yours. It's not your character. It's not your universe. It's not your set. And you're not supposed to make money off of it. Now, that's not to say that fan films and fanfic aren't a great place to learn what you're doing.
Yeah.
Fanfic is a great place because you already know about the character. You've already seen the character. You've already seen how the character acts and walks and talks and the dialogue that they use or the equipments that they handle. You look at like Scotty, not everybody has a gun.
No.
So which is a good point these days. But you have a lot of characters that may be techie characters or and how to handle something, how to move around a set. The thought of building a set I applaud fanfic at a basic level.
Right.
It could be a good springboard. If you want to learn about storytelling, start with something you're familiar with and then expand out of your own stuff.
Imitation is a good place to be.
And we've seen, that many people who've been involved in, fan fiction have gone on to eventually create their own original things.
Right.
Yes.
And, because, it's like, I want to do a story, based on, it's like, some obscure horror villain from an 80s slasher movie, just because I want to explore where they would go. That's where I get my, hands on, with angles, effects, everything else like that.
Well,
and then go on to do something more, my original stuff using the skills that I've learned. And then I can start making money.
Well, now here's kind of a fun thought, though. If you're talking about an obscure character or something that hasn't been done in a while, do a little bit of research, write a letter, and find out what it would take to license this character. And now you can pick up the ball and run with it.
I didn't think of that.
And that is a huge thing.
The hardest part, Allan's absolutely right, but the hardest part on that is so many of those little characters out there, you can't find contact information anymore because everything used to be hard copy. And apparently Holly... And
somebody owns it someplace. It's in a computer somewhere.
Yeah. One of the easiest ways to find out who owns something is to start a conversation about that character and building something on them, because those people will contact you quickly.
I got a question for both of you guys, because you probably know this stuff and I don't. There was one movie, I want to say, was it Night of the Living Dead, where it's now public domain because he didn't think about it. And so my question is, if something's in public domain, can you monetize that? Like if you just want to pick it up and
let me start with you there with Night of the Living Dead. Due to a quick turnaround on the title, because in order to not be confused with another movie that was coming at the time, it got the name Night of the Living Dead. Because of production and everything, they were in such a rush. They did not think to trademark that title, to copyright that name. There are 1,000 people out there who have done remakes of Night of the Living Dead without any kind of issue. That's why eventually Romero would be the executive producer on a remake in the 90s with Tom Savini directing, in order to try and get that title back under their control.
Okay.
But because of that, there are still hundreds of Night of the Living Dead versions out there that are not the official.
Yeah, because you could have some 1940s monster movie that you just decide, okay, we're going to do this right. We're going to just take that, and I just wonder if you can monetize it. So yeah.
Well, again, this is where we're talking about public domain and licensing.
Yeah.
Sherlock Holmes has now entered the public domain.
Oh, that's
so is
right.
Winnie the Pooh.
So has Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to write a Sherlockian novel, you can.
Yeah, that's
You
true.
can't-
I've read a couple that are pretty good.
But you can't
actually.
lock up Sherlock Holmes as yours.
Yeah.
Sherlock
that's
Holmes
true.
has entered.
that's
Holmes
true.
has entered the public domain. So that is why sometimes when you're doing this, and again, I'm gonna preface and say I'm for exploring your art, and I'm for doing cool stuff. And if fanfic is something you want to practice writing, or you want to practice acting or shooting, or however you want to get into it, I'm kind of all for it, so long as you understand it ain't yours.
Yeah.
It's, your production of something that you did that somebody else did.
But it's a good way to showcase your own talents. Like you said, if you're showcasing that you're a good filmmaker or something, to me, it's kind of a smart business move. You make a Harry Potter fanfic, which fan film. I've seen a few really good ones. Honestly, there's like 30-minute films, and I'm thinking, okay, well, that's basically building your resume. Now all of a sudden, you can go to a studio and say, hey, I have an idea for a movie. Here's what I've done.
We saw the guy who was doing the deep fakes and stuff like that on YouTube, and showing how that he was a better person at de-aging characters than Disney was.
Yeah.
He's got a job now.
Yeah, well,
Exactly,
and you also get shots at, certain characters. You were a Humphrey Bogart fan. You thought you'd make a pretty good Sam Spade. Well, let's get a few friends together. Let's shoot a scene like Sam Spade and make the film noir comments. But again, remember, it ain't yours.
Yeah.
So don't
keep your ego in check.
Well, it's not even keep your ego in check as so much keep your pocketbook and what you can make money off of in check.
It's like if you want to try and make money off of what you did, that's when you see people out there that's like, I can't get the DVD of this thing, but that they put on YouTube. But why is he selling masks? Why is he selling props? Because those are things they built that they can.
Yeah,
those are not licensed items, but they're also not licensed items, but they're also not, it's not a ripoff of like, a Star Trek phaser if they built their own thing.
I got a question for you guys because, to me, because the caller or the listener was asking about recommendations too. So, in terms of YouTube, I feel like it's pretty easy. Okay, if you go Harry Potter fanfic or Star Trek or something, you put it in the search bar, and I would probably tend towards the ones that have like a couple million views or something, and just that's a way to filter it out. Well, honestly, I've tried to look up fan fiction, like written short stories, and there's so much that comes up. I don't know how to find that. Like, how do you find good, well-written fan fiction? Because that seems like a harder search to me.
That is, in of itself, that it's what you said. It's a search. What you have to do is you go to one of the sites where, there's someone who's posted a lot on, like a Harry Potter board where they've got links to their stories. You check it out. You see if you like, you'll usually be able to find links to more stuff. There's a lot out there that is just, complete and utter. What do they? If you put 50 monkeys at a typewriter, you'll eventually get an Oscar-winning, script.
Yeah.
Well, these guys got a sloth. And,
these were the these were the 49. Yeah.
But then you'll find some stuff that is just like hidden gems, and it really is a hit or miss thing.
Well, and for fanfic, it's never a bad idea to study somebody else's work. It's never a bad idea, because and of course in writing, the first thing we tell you is write what you know.
Yeah.
And if you are a big fan of Steinbeck, chances are the first thing you write is going to look a lot like Steinbeck.
Yeah.
If you're a big fan of Star Wars, the first thing you write is probably going to look like a Star Wars adventure.
Yeah, we call that Aragon.
Adventure.
Yeah, we call that Aragon. It's about a dragon.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
sorry.
There's a lot of these out there. The biggest thing is enjoy it, and if you're looking for these type things, like you said, there's Spotify, there's Reddit, there's YouTube, there's fan circles, there's clubs, there's 1,000 ways to find.
And one of the things you might end up finding along that rabbit hole are the audio plays.
I was about to say, now you're making me think audio would be the way to go because you can listen to it. And you can tell the level of production pretty quick too.
Yeah,
So.
and I mean, and that's something that Spotify is a good place to check for is audio plays. Sometimes you'll find things that are actually, like with Batman right now, they've got a thing called Batman Unburied, which is a DC sponsored, podcast that tells us, a Batman story. But these are written by people who were kind of amateur writers doing fanfic that have submitted to.
Oh no, I didn't know that. That's cool to know. Yeah. So it's fans.
So it's and the thing is a lot of times though, while it is it's from a fan fiction point of view. These are still writers who have cut their teeth. Yeah. And the way to do that is just get out there and write, put your stuff out there, where people can check it out. There's always going to be a way to find it. If you're a part of any fandom, don't be afraid to ask other fandom boards for these suggestions. Because, I can tell you, it's like, dude, you got to watch Vengeance, Never Hike Alone, The Ghost Cut, and, Roseblood. If you're a Friday the 13th fan, those are amazing fan films. But there are going to be guys out there who can tell you all of them.
That's a good point. Yeah. Thing. A few people have abused it, but honestly, it doesn't seem like it's as big of a problem as it could be.
When it comes down to it, any creative outlet is worth looking into. If you enjoy a world, check these fanfic and fan-made films out, because you might find something that you enjoy. There's modern day Star Wars stories.
Yeah.
In some of these, it's like dude, walking home from college gets attacked by a Sith Lord.
Yeah.
He's a Padawan. But he's in school. It's it takes you in interesting directions that you may not have expected to go with the various fandoms you like.
And I don't know, man. I feel like you could still find a way to carefully monetize it, because I'm thinking if you write fan fiction and you have your own website or something, well, right next to it are these original stories that I wrote, and you can you can either purchase the audio book or something, or at least get your exposure.
I'm going to say don't muddy the water. Yeah. Don't muddy the water. If you're going to write fanfic, be fanfic and do the thing of whatever fan fiction is. Clearly identify it as fan fiction. If you're doing fanfic art, make sure you're pointing out. At no point do we want to mislead.
Yeah, put the disclaimer right up front.
Now as long as it's one of these things. So long as you're on the up and up.
Yeah.
Fanfic anything is good. You're celebrating the character or fandom or universe that you enjoy, and it's fabulous. The ugly head of profit is where all the problems lie.
Yeah. But I still think that's a direct thing.
There are ways to roll your fanfic into, just getting other things that you've done out there. If you are an artist, but you've written these stories out there, use your DeviantArt pages or your Patreon or whatever, where you do commissions of things that they would want to see. And if they ask you to, it's like, well, I would love for it to commission a picture from your story, okay.
Yeah.
But don't go out there going, I illustrated my Harry Potter fanfic and I'm selling panels.
Yeah.
That's not how this works.
Be careful. But anyway, good question. And those are the kind of questions we want from the Rick's Powder Coating text line, the GTR mailbag at 901-683-0989, or go to geektankradio.com. And I like these things where, for one thing, Brandon doesn't get triggered, but also it leads to bigger discussions. Oh, come on, the trigger ones are
fun, too.
Yeah, because, the bigger discussions are what it's all about. And so, stay in touch with us, and we'd love to hear from you. But I don't know. I like that one. I'm going to go out and try to find some good fan fiction.
Joe's going to read fan fiction next week.
Yeah, we'll try. But, guys, we're out of time. So until next week, we are the Geek Patrol, and I am Joe Thorderson.
I'm Allan Gilbreth.
I'm Maximilian.
And I am Brandon Olmsted, challenging you to send us some of your fanfic. We're not going to read it on the air, but you might get passes anyway.
True.